Okay, tonight we're going to look at the tale of the two Roberts. And the two Roberts were Robert Young and Robert Brindle. And the event took place in October of 1884 here in Surry, Maine. But before we get to the actual event, I need to give you a little background of the two Roberts. Robert Young was born in Surry on October 11th in 1817. He was the son of Captain John Young and Nancy Hammond Young, and they were, we think, relatives of the early settlers. Captain John Young was related to Sarah Joy, who was the sister of Benjamin Joy, who helped settle at Weymouth Point. Nancy Hammond may have been a relative of Moses Hammond, who was Surry's first trial justice in 1874, and he had settled on No Man's Cape, which, of course, is what Newbury Neck is called. The Youngs, John and Nancy, were settled on Newbury Neck, and so Robert Young grew up there. We don't have much information on if he was married or not, but in the Albert Hill papers and the information was presented by Mark Honey to a Surrey Historical Society meeting, that he may have been married or at least had a relationship with Mary Branscombe. And in the 1850 census of Trenton, there was a Mary Branscombe living with her father and others in Trenton. She would have been 27 years old then. And also there was a little boy, Harvey Young, who was 7 years old, who was also lived in that family. So there may have been a relationship there. I'll leave the genealogists to decide on that. In 1850, the census in Surrey showed that Robert Young was 32 years old, and he was living with his parents, and he was listed as a mariner. In 1860 census, Surrey, he was living with Robert Brindle and Robert Brindle's family. In 1860, Robert Brindle was noted as being the town keeper of the port. In 1870 census, Robert Young was living with his brother Samuel Young. And I'm not sure you can see this, but on the this last row here shows Robert Young, and in this column it says insane. The heading for that whole column was whether deaf and dumb, blind, insane, or idiotic. I'm not sure that would have been politically correct now. In fact, in 2020, that is not listed. But starting in 1840, that designation was put in, and every census worker had to ask that question and get the information from that question. Because that was, at that time, there was a lot of concern by reformers of people with mental health issues, and they wanted to create mental institutions. So it was put in place, and so that designation was on the column through until 1890, when it became defective of mind. A little tidbit of information there. In 1880, Robert Young in the census was now living with Robert Brindle and his wife Mercy, and he was considered to be a laborer at that time. The second Robert is Robert Brindle, and you can see the different spellings of that. Sorry. Go back. Robert Brindle was born in Sedgwick on November 12th, 1850. There's different spelling of Grindle in different records. Genealogists are probably very familiar with this, but there's also different dates, and so never exactly sure exactly what the dates were. But he was, it's always has shown that he is the son of Joshua F. Grindle and Ruth Stanley Grindle, and he came of a very large family. He was one of the 11 surviving children, and he married Mercy Barnum in 1841, who was from Brooksville. They had 8 children, 3 sons and 5 daughters. Robert Grindle was a well-respected citizen of Surry, and he served his duty. He served in the Aroostook War in Captain Daniel Doherty's company of infantry in the detachment of Maine from February 20th, 1839 to April 23rd, 1839. The Aroostook War was not very long. And then he also served in the Civil War. He enlisted in the United States Army in July 21st, 1862. He was mustered on August 21st, 1862, and held the rank of corporal in Company C of the 18th Infantry, Maine. He was transferred on December 19th, 1862, to Company C of the 1st Maine Heavy Artillery, which was one of the very regiments who had a lot of battle scars and had one of the worst battles in the history of the Civil War. He was injured and received a disability discharge on April 10, 1865. Here is the Robert Grindle's declaration of recruit in Surry, Maine, and you probably won't be able to read all of this, but I want to note that on this one document, Robert Grindle is spelled D-A-L-E, and then here he signed it G-R-I-N-D-L-E. So on the very same document, you have just different spellings of the name. It also states here that he's 44. This was in 1862. If he was 44, he would have been born in 1817. So I'm not sure if he did that intentionally, because most of the enlistees were usually under 45. And so perhaps if he was 46 or 48, they may not have accepted him, or he may have thought they wouldn't accept him. It was not illegal to be enlisted at an older age, but perhaps he thought there might be a problem. That's my conjecture. I have no other reason why he would have lied about his own age. As I mentioned, Robert Grindle has been very well respected. He served in May of 1877 on a special jury service. He was actually one of the jurists for a murder trial of Edward M. Smith, who was tried for murder of Melissa A. Thayer in Bucksport on Friday, October 13th, 1876. Sort of unlucky day for Melissa. Edward Smith was convicted of murder, and Melissa Thayer. The motive was to steal $850 that Thayer had in her father's house, which was from the sale of her deceased husband's farm in Hampton. This is this picture there is of Robert Grindle, and this is the blow-up of that picture. So that was Robert Grindle. Okay, so fast forward to 1884, and page 3 of the Ellsworth American on October 16th, the happenings. What was happening in Surry at this time? Well, Josiah Cunningham was building a large house at Surry. Evidently, he's building it for the rusticators. Edward Curtis is moving his dwelling house at Newbury Neck to get away from a malarial cellar. Clinton Clow natively escaped drowning in Patton's Bay. A sudden squall upset his boat. And maybe they had a tropical storm like we just had on Saturday. Frank Townsend has purchased the Charles Allen stamp and is shaping the building for a traveler's home. Comprehensive plan is thinking about housing, so building a large house for rusticators and travelers' homes. Sound familiar? Newell J. Kane has bought the Hodgkin store, Contention Cove. He intends it for a dwelling house. Luther Smith, and Lou Smith was the father of Juanita Higgins, who talked to us recently at North Bend, has the largest and best field of beans that we have ever seen. In the mouth of the river in Patton Bay, folks had a picnic in a steamboat ride next day after election. All these are pretty mundane and similar to what we do in Surry today, except also on page 3 of the October 16, 1884 Ellsworth American, there was murder in Surry. October 16, 1884 issue of the Ellsworth American. I'll read that to you. News was brought to the city Monday morning, October 13th, that Robert Young, a town pauper, had been found dead at the house of Robert Grindle in Surry, with whom he lived. Coroner G.W. Fisk, in company with Dr. O.M. Drake, immediately started for the place. At the house, the body of Young was found lying on the floor of the kitchen in a pool of blood, and presenting the appearance of having been dead over 24 hours. An examination by the doctors revealed the following wounds on the head. One on the right temple, one on the right side of the lower jaw, one over the left cheek, and one behind the left ear on the side of the head. Aside from those wounds, a considerable portion of the body presented the appearance of having been bruised in a shocking manner. The only other occupant of the house is Robert Grindle, with whom the deceased lived. Mr. Grindle was sitting in the sitting room on the arrival of the coroner and presented the appearance of being violently insane. A jury was impaneled, and William Connery, the one who first discovered that a murder had been committed, testified that he called at Grindle's house at about 8 o'clock Monday morning. On opening the door of the kitchen, he saw Young lying on the floor and Grindle standing within a few feet of the body. Grindle forbade him from entering the house, and he left and gave the alarm. The opinions of the physicians were also listened to by the jury. The following verdict was rendered: that the said Robert Young came to his death by the hand of Robert Grindle sometime between Saturday evening, October 11th, Robert Young's 67th birthday, but a birthday present, and Sunday noon, October 12th, 1884, by wounds to the head by some sharp-pointed instrument in the hand of said Grindle. The deceased was over 60 years old and has lived with Grindle for several years. He was of weak or unsound mind and a cripple from disease of the hip. He had never been regarded dangerous. Mr. Grindle is about 70 years of age, but still possesses a powerful frame and great muscular strength. His neighbors have suspected him of being unsound in his mind for some weeks past. Mrs. Grindle, who is an estimable lady, was ordered away from the house by her husband about 4 weeks ago and has not been there since. Mr. Grindle was arrested and brought to the jail in this city October 13th on Monday afternoon. It is probable that his case will be brought before the grand jury at this term of court. From the Surry murder from on October 15th, 1884, from the Daily Kennebec Journal, it was written: according to what seems well-authenticated reports, Robert Grindle, who killed Young at Surry, has been insane for several weeks. said to a neighbor recently, "I feel strange. Either I'm crazy or everybody else is. If you think I'm dangerous, you had better take care of me before I do some harm." Grindle is a man well advanced in years. Since his wife left him, he has kept his own house, having no one with him except Young, a demented pauper whom he killed. He is the father of Dr. R.L. Grindle of Mount Desert and Dr. R.P. Grindle of Blue Hill, both well-known men of excellent standing. I'd like to diverge just slightly here and show you the pictures of those two gentlemen. These were photographs of both of these sons of Robert Grindle, taken in 1903 from their Surry Centennial book. They both gave speeches at the Centennial event in Surry to commemorate our centennial in 1803 of the incorporation. As mentioned before, Robert Grindle had 3 sons. The third I don't have a picture of, but he was actually the second son. But his name was Joshua Grindle. And Joshua Grindle should be a familiar name to Surryites because the Joshua Grindle was the last ship that was launched on the 4th of July in 1873 from the Surry Village shipyard. In Mendocino, California, we have the Joshua Grindle Inn, which is actually now an inn which you can go and stay all night or for a week or however long you like. And it is also a National Historic Property now. It was built in from 1879 to 1882 when it was completed. It was the homestead of Joshua Grindle. Joshua Grindle had left, at the age of 14 he was a mariner, became a sailor, and then when he was 25 he and Henry Jarvis from Surry went to Mendocino, California, and they worked in lumber mills for a while, and then he, after his retirement from about age 55, he became a town banker, and was a very respected man. So all 3 of Robert Grindle's sons were very well respected, as I'm sure his 5 daughters were as well, but they don't have all the information about all of the daughters. So, back to the case. So, October 13th, Robert Grindle was arrested, and the jury was impaneled. October 16th, the grand jury indicted him for murder. So now the report is the action taken in the case by the court, which was reported by the Portland Daily Press in October 17, 1884. So October 16th, the grand jury reported an indictment against Robert Grindle for murder. The Attorney General Henry Cleves stated that he was notified that a plea of insanity would be made, and then the court assigned Andrew Whistle, Esquire, as counsel for the prisoner. Dr. Harlow was sworn in and testified to his examination of Robert Grindle. And I'll read that excerpt now. Dr. Harlow states, "I made an examination of Robert Grindle this forenoon. From my examination, I judge that the prisoner is not in a condition to be tried at present. From his appearance in the interview I've had with him, he was more or less reticent and excitable. My judgment is that it would be a wise course to follow, to have him observed by persons familiar with the disease of insanity for a good length of time, if necessary." So, as you can imagine, after that, the tragedy on the hill has set the gossip mills running on full time. Robert Grindle spent the rest of his life at the Augusta Insane Asylum, and there's no record of any trial that occurred after. A little more than 14 years in the Augusta Insane Asylum, Robert Grindle passed away on January 14, 1899. The Lewiston Evening Journal in 1899 reported remains of Robert Grindle, resident who died recently in the sane asylum, brought to Surry for interment. This is his gravestone, which is at the village cemetery. The Ellsworth American wrote in their list of dead people who died, Grindle, at Augusta, January 14th, Robert Grindle, formerly of Surry, aged 86 years. However, according to his gravestone, he was 83 years and 2 months. John, October seems to be a murderous month in Bucksport and in Surry.
Can I ask a question? Can you tell us where Grindle Hill is and where the house was?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, Grindle Hill is the road to Blue Hill, right? Just as you go up the hill from the village, was the house on the left. And those of you who have been here for a while may have remembered John and Cornelia Mann. And Lyman Mann and Lyman and Rose lived a little bit further along, but the house was there on that empty lot there. You can see, I think there's a gate or something there currently where the house was. So it's very close to the village. There. So tell us more about October murders.
Hey.